One of those keys happened to go to a locker in the crow's nest that held the only pair of binoculars for the lookout.
You're, you're telling me that this whole ship, 883 feet, 9 inches long, 90 something feet tall, this whole ship only had one pair of binoculars on it? That's what they're saying, huh?
That's what they're saying. And if that's the case,
It should have sank.
they deserve to some. Never.
Welcome to the Conspiracy Kitchen.
What's going on, guys? Thank you for joining us in the Conspiracy Kitchen, where we try to find the secret ingredients behind life's daily mysteries. So today, the special on the menu, or specials, would be the Titanic, but not just the Titanic. It would be the Olympic class liners of. So that's the Olympic, the Titanic, and the Britannic. 3 separate ships. Everyone knows the Titanic. And we had that, awesome film. So everyone knows it, but not many people know the 2 sisters, the Olympic and the Britannic. So I guess we'll bring them into the mix and talk about all 3 of them. Everyone knows the Titanic was, built back in 1911. It was the longest of the 3 ships at 882 feet, 9 inches. The other 2 were 882 feet on the dot. The Britannic and the Olympic. Now, the difference is I posted a picture on X and Instagram, and it'll help us out later on in the episode, too, when we get into some other things. But the Olympic and the Titanic differ from their A deck. So, on the Titanic, their A deck, the promenade, is enclosed because during the Olympic with the sailing, people, or the crews kind of saw that guests stayed on the A deck promenade and didn't really use B deck promenade. So they decided to enclose A deck, made the promenade up there because it was more popular, and then down underneath on the B deck, the Olympic had a public, first class promenade. They then changed them and made them 2 private promenades and 2 guest rooms, making them the most expensive rooms on the ship. So, 1, the Titanic, you got a little more money for those tickets. And 2, it was kind of waste of space on the Olympic because everyone hung out up top. So they kind of enclosed it up top on the Titanic to protect you from, winds and salt water and stuff like that, splashes. Everyone stayed up there. And the picture shows the differences. The Britannic later on is they did a lot of different changes to that ship. So we can get into that in a little bit. The Olympic allegedly never sank. Now, the Olympic, went into service in 1911. It did a transatlantic route between Southampton, England, and New York City. She became known as Old Reliable because, 1, she got rammed by the HMS Hawk and took severe damage below water and above water and stayed afloat. Then, she also rammed and sunk a German U-boat, U-103, in 1918 in the war. And this thing didn't sink. So apparently Olympic was the best of the 3, allegedly.
It's a strong bitch.
Yeah, just taking those just ram the U-boat and send it. So once Cunard Lines bought White Star Line, they kind of saw the ship was kind of getting older, expensive to maintain. So in 1935, they decided to sell it for scrap, and it was dismantled in 1937. Most of the pictures I could find of the scrapping of the Olympic is just the hull. Pictures that show the entire ship are paintings. I can't get an entire ship picture in the scrapyard. I don't know if anyone else can find one. I could not, and I've looked around for that, which is another little interesting thing we could talk about later. The Titanic now. Obviously, everyone knows they watched the movie. Apparently, it set sail, heading for New York City. For some reason, they decided to speed up and completely ignore ice warnings. And they struck a quote-unquote iceberg at about 11:40 at night and sunk about 2 hours and 45 minutes later killing more than 1,500 people. Now, that was pretty much the end of the Titanic, quote unquote, I guess, allegedly the Titanic. The SS Carpathia came and rescued the survivors in the lifeboats and anyone that was floating around and brought them to New York City. The Britannic was the only one that wasn't an RMS. So the Olympic and the Titanic were RMSs because they were Royal Mail ships. They transported Royal Mail for England around the world. So that's why they got the RMS. But the Britannic, before she was done, World War One had started. I'm sorry. So they got the HMHS insignia, which was His Majesty Hospital Ship. It was served as a hospital ship where it never got to see commercial use because on its sixth... Well, we'll start with this. They knew everything that went wrong with the Titanic and why it sank. So they changed the rudder because the Titanic had too small of a rudder to turn, they said. They double-hulled the hull. So there was a double hull lining to kind of prevent that water from gushing right in if it struck something like an iceberg in the water. They increased the bulkhead height so that the water could not spill over the top of the watertight bulkheads. Also made the ship heavier, which is why they consider it the biggest ship of the three, even though it's shorter than the Titanic, but the displacement tonnage is larger. Then 1916, on her sixth trip, she struck a German mine off the coast of Greece, which sank her in about 55 minutes. So much faster than the Titanic. Apparently it blew the side open and warped the bulkhead doors so they couldn't close in it. And then on top of that, the captain ordered full steam ahead to try to beach it, which made it basically nosedive, killing only about 30 people on board of the 1,066. Now, with all these things and the Olympic looking the way it did and stuff, there's a lot of conspiracies behind what actually happened to these ships because there's a lot of mystery behind what happened. I mean, there's different stories. And to begin with, when crew members and passengers were asked about the iceberg the Titanic hit, no one could tell you how tall it was. Some people mentioned 100 feet tall. Some people mentioned 60 feet tall, 20 feet tall. Some people said no, there was no iceberg sticking out of the water. It was pack ice on the water. So right there, you're starting to get all these different answers for, seems to me, a simple question. Then, when they're asked about how the ship sank, different records. Now, survivors that were on the Carpathia said that the ship split in two. And for, the 60 years before they found it, they were all told there was impossible. No way they could have done it. Crew members of the ship that were saved said it absolutely didn't split in two. There's no way. They're lying. They don't know what they're talking about. There's no way the ship split in two. Well, 1985, when they found it, they saw the ship split in two. So why would these crew members adamantly deny the splitting of the ship? Like, just adamantly deny it. It's another thing that kind of is iffy for me, which gets us why we started to dig into this and look at conspiracies behind the Titanic and what people could have gained or lost from the sinking of it, or not of the exact Titanic. You have any off-the-wall conspiracies to start with here, Josh?
Boy, do I. I'll get a short one out of the way. They said that on the hull of the ship, because there's a lot of numbers on the sides of the ship.
Yes.
One of which was 390904. They said that somebody was in their house near the ship while it was docked, and they saw it in a mirror, and they thought it said "No Pope." So they were like, "Oh, it's the mark of the devil. They're not. It's doomed." Stupid.
That was it, right? That's the whole thing. That's the
whole thing.
That's doomed in the start.
Doomed from the start. There's another one. This one I just find funny. Just the pure pettiness of it. There was a crew member, David Blair. He was on all the trial runs of the ship, and he was super excited to be on the ship's maiden voyage, but he got transferred right before the ship left. So, being a petty little bitch that he was, he went on and he stole a bunch of random keys from the ship, and one of those keys happened to go to a locker in the crow's nest that held the only pair of binoculars for the lookout.
You're, you're telling me that this whole ship, 883 feet, 9 inches long, 90 something feet tall, this whole ship only had one pair of binoculars on it? That's what they're saying, huh?
That's what they're saying. And if that's the case,
It should have sank.
they deserve to. Never.
Can we say that?
No, we can't. But
we will.
Yeah, fuck them. But they, after the sinking and everyone, well, most of them got rescued, and they got the two lookouts survived. They asked them, they're like, well, would it have made a difference, if you had the binoculars? And they were like, well, fucking yeah. Of course it would. We'd see an iceberg. Fucking
We would have
way
saw this
before.
iceberg.
Could have moved. But that one I found kind of, I know it's horrible, but that one I found funny because just being a pure asshole could cause catastrophe, so to speak. This one is so stupid. It's been proven not true, basically, but it's still interesting.
It's true.
Yeah, it's all true. There's a man named William Stead, whatever the fuck he wants to go by. He was a newspaper editor and a known spiritualist. He was basically the father of tabloid journalism. He did a lot of research and wrote about a exhibit in the museum in England, and they had a sarcophagus of a mummy, and they said it was of the princess of Amun-Ra, and anyone who went near it just had the worst luck. Some people actually died after coming in contact with this, and so he wrote about that a lot. And then in 1912, the story goes, an American purchased it and said to have shipped it, or wanted to ship it back to America on the Titanic. And, so the story was, that was the cause of it, which...
So it's like shipping Robert the Doll on the Titanic.
Exactly. And of course, William Stead was on the Titanic. He was noted to have helped a lot of women and children, even giving away his own life vest to help somebody else. Like, he was a real solid dude. And actually froze to death in the water, hanging onto something next to John Jacob Astor, who we'll get into later.
John Jacob Astor, the richest person on the ship, and maybe the richest person in the world.
Yeah.
During that time period. Yeah.
It's an odd time to rub elbows with the rich, but take what you can get. But yeah, that one, it was proven to be bullshit because it's still in the museum in England, and there was never any records of it ever being on board and all of that. But I thought that one was kind of funny.
Or it teleported itself back to the museum after it sank the ship.
Yeah, like a Ouija board.
To try to endanger or damage something else in the future.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, it was known as the Unlucky Mummy.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't hear this one.
It was stupid. I read about it yesterday, and I was like, this is the dumbest shit I've... Anyway. Oh, it's also dumb that some people think it was a UFO that sank the Titanic.
Could be aliens. It's always aliens.
It's always aliens, but I read that people thought there's a UFO under the ocean that shot 3 big holes into the ship and sank it. So yeah, aliens.
You don't think so?
No.
You don't think that maybe these aliens that were living under the water, these ancient aliens that have been here and they set up, like Atlantis, decided to try to get some of these people that are the richest people in the world, the most, you know, well off, uh, to try to bring them down and interrogate them on the ways of human beings. So they sank the ship and brought them to their underwater cities to then keep them there as like slaves.
Uh, yeah, probably.
No,
It sounds feasible.
could be, right?
It could. Well,
The aliens are
it's
always looking at
always
stuff.
it's always the fucking aliens. They need to chill out.
So you don't think it's the aliens.
I'll say this: I think it's aliens as much as I think it was a mummy curse. I'll say that.
But aliens and other things.
Aliens and other things, yeah.
Yeah, we do believe in aliens with other stuff.
Oh, I believe in aliens, just in this sense.
You don't think it was Anna? No, she was after this.
She was way after this.
That we know.
Short bitch. Anyway, there was another one. It was believed to have been sunk by a German U-boat. This was an interesting one. Kaiser Wilhelm II, in lack of better words, he wanted to have the biggest dick swinging fleet on the ocean.
Oh, because there's a ship. There's a set of ships that the Germans were competing with the White Star Line with.
Yeah, and he was kind of sick of England having the best fleet, so to speak. And it's believed that they sunk the ship, kind of flexing their muscles, even though this is before the war. They still just wanted to flex a little and sink the ship. And when they spoke to survivors of the Titanic, they asked what they heard and what they saw, and they were like, "Well, we heard what sounded like explosions under the water, which could easily be a torpedo."
Mm-hmm.
And what they saw, apparently, when they were in the lifeboats or floating around, off in the distance, they saw what looked like a ship, and they thought, "Great, we're rescued," but then the ship went away. Almost like a U-boat servicing and then just fucking off into the distance.
And these are recorded. And
Yeah, this is all. You can look it up. It's all there.
Yeah, maybe it was the Germans, because they did set the record for the transatlantic time though with their one of their ships. I'd have to look up the name of it. The Titanic, well, because they used different engines. They had like more horsepower and stuff, but yeah, but the Titanic was bigger. The Olympic was bigger. So I guess that was just not. They didn't like that very much, did they?
No, he just wanted to be the biggest bitch in the water, and it just.
So they just took him out.
Just sunk a ship carrying very well-known, wealthy people that would have gotten a lot of
also
attention.
Helps them out too, doesn't it, Germans? Yeah.
It certainly does, absolutely. But no, it was ice.
Maybe. You got any other
No,
odd ones?
Those are my 4 dumb ones.
Okay.
I read up on this a lot. I know it doesn't sound like it, but my my research is mainly the dumb ones and then watching 2 movies that we'll talk about later on.
Yeah, we'll get into the Titanic. Obviously, everyone has seen that movie, but then there's a couple more movies that are lesser known: Titanic 2 and Titanic 666, the sequel.
Yeah, a couple of hope diamonds in the ocean, so to speak.
So I guess the biggest conspiracy is that it was J.P. Morgan behind all this.
It's the main one, right?
It's like the most talked about one, I guess you could say. And yes, we've gotten flack by people on X for even suggesting this. And I just want to say, like, this is entertainment purposes. By all means, we are not historians of some kind.
Look, we talk about fighting cryptids, all right? We're not teaching a class here. All right.
We're just trying to give you the information that's out there and let you sift through it and find out what you think could be possible. Are these possible? So, J.P. Morgan, which is odd. So there's a bunch of guys that just decided not to get on the Titanic that day. We got Hershey, Milton Hershey. Obviously, he's well off. He's the founder of the Hershey Chocolate Company. He paid for 2 tickets for him and his wife to get on this ship. But someone got, decided not to go, and they wanted to get back to America faster, so they left like 2 days earlier. That's much faster. On a different ship, the German ship, the America. So for some reason he said, fuck it, we'll leave 2 days earlier because I need to get back to America right away. And didn't take the Titanic, which would be the maiden voyage of the Titanic, the most luxurious ship in the world at the time. You would think you would want to be on it, but he took some German shitbox, I guess. We also got, J.P. Morgan himself. Now, this is the strangest one that I don't understand why he didn't get on the ship. He had tickets to go. He was all ready to go. But just last second, for whatever reason, he decided to say, I want to stay in France a little, just a little longer. Just to like another week. And just didn't get on the ship. There's absolutely no reason why. The historians have dug and searched and they cannot discover any real reason besides the fact he's just like, meh, fuck it. A ship that basically he owns the White Star Line. You would think you'd want to be on this maiden voyage, but I don't want to go on it. I don't know. I don't understand that. Then we got Henry Frick, chairman of Carnegie Steel, which J.P. Morgan bought. He somehow didn't get on the Titanic, even though he had complimentary tickets to go on this thing. His wife sprained her ankle in Italy. So they said, I'd rather just stay in Italy to give it time to heal than take one of the most luxurious ship in the world to New York City. So we'll just, fuck it. We're not going to go. And Ismay took his spot. Ismay from the movie, too. He's in there. But he took his spot and actually survived, obviously. So then we also have George Washington Vanderbilt II, another rich guy. Didn't get on this ship. And this is another strange one. Somehow, he owns a bunch of he has like a railroad and steel businesses and stuff. He has a shit ton of money. He was told by unnamed people that the trip could be dangerous and he should cancel his tickets just the week before the ship set sail. So he didn't go on it. Odd, if you ask me. I don't know if you, if that's, I don't know, just dangerous.
No, that's completely normal. Look, anytime I go on a trip anywhere, I always have a random person tell me, hey, you shouldn't go.
It's dangerous.
It's dangerous. It's a very normal thing. It happened right before Jamaica. Some guy came up to me, hey, it's going to be a bad time. And you know what? I went anyway.
You're still here.
Still here.
Still here. Yeah, because you're not some rich guy like this. That's
no, I'm not.
Disaster. You're not a billionaire yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. We got another guy. Theodore Dreiser. He is a novelist, book writer. He was again going to go on the Titanic. Buddies. These are buddies of J.P. Morgan. But for whatever reason, his publisher urged him to take a smaller, cheaper ship that left 2 days before the Titanic again, just to save time getting to New York. Why wait for the Titanic? Just take this, turd of a ship that means nothing for whatever reason. You have, money, but just take some other shitty ship. And then we also have John R. Mott. Now, John R. Mott, the YMCA chairman, was also supposed to take the Titanic. But for whatever reason, his colleagues told him, you need to travel on a more humble ship. So they took the Lapland. And they took that to New York. And the good Lord must have saved me because there's more work for us to do. It was his quote on why, what happened when they said the Titanic had sunk. So all these guys, all these rich guys, kind of get along with J.P. Morgan, I guess he doesn't want to die. Just happened to avoid disaster, if you will, on the Titanic.
You could call it a disaster. It's fine. I mean, it's a giant ship that sunk. A lot of people died. You could call that a disaster.
Yes, but when you're looking at these things, so these people, some of the richest people in the world, why would you, without excuse? There's not like none of these are good excuses to me on why you shouldn't take the Titanic to New York. I want to be there a day early. Oh, I should take a more humble ship. Some random guy on the street came up to me and said it's going to be dangerous. It's probably the most believable one. It probably wasn't some random guy. My wife sprained her ankle, and instead of being in the lap of luxury on the ship, I'm just going to stay in Italy. None of these make sense at all. These make sense to you?
No.
Makes no sense. None. So
None.
now you got people that did go on the ship that were also rich. You got Isidor Straus. He was a very influential businessman. You have like the wealthiest man in the world at the time, like we brought up before, Jacob Astor. He also was on there. There's some other ones like Benjamin Guggenheim, American businessman. He was on there. And some other smaller guys. The designer of the Titanic, Thomas Andrew, was on there, but he can't not go on it. He designed it. But the main three that I talked about before, these guys it's denied. And if you mainstream search for these information, but they are said to have been against the Federal Reserve. Now, you have J.P. Morgan, who was for the Federal Reserve at the time. He wanted the Federal Reserve in the United States, and these guys seem to be against it. So you have these guys go on the ship and they die. But besides that, too, we go back to the differences in the Olympic and the Titanic. And what happened to the Olympic early on, which I mentioned, being rammed by the Hawk. It was right before the Titanic set sail in 1911. So, yeah, the Titanic set sail in 1912. The Hawk rammed this thing in 1911. It's not worth as much money. This thing is obviously damaged. They're trying to, fix it up a little bit. So that's where the name switch comes in. Now, there's two theories behind this other thing that I wanted to bring up. When the Titanic had two stops, it left England and stopped somewhere in Wales to pick up more people. When it arrived, there's pictures of it, and on the starboard hull, you can see from the shadows, it looks like it's waved. There's like a spot where it looks like it's waved out. Something could have happened. Now, the one theory about this is that there was a coal bunker fire that they had a hard time putting out, and it weakened the steel in the ship. Or two, it could have been damage caused by a ramming earlier on in 1911 when the Hawk hit the Olympic. The coal bunker fire is possible. Let's put it back. But the Olympic thing is also interesting to think about. Now, I know we're going to get yelled at and flack for this, but there's been reports that people said that they were both docked together and parts were like nameplates were interchanged. The other thing that I found interesting is that apparently a propeller found at the Titanic crash had 400 etched in it. The Olympic was 400, the Titanic was 401, and the Britannic was 433. Those are the etchings on their parts. Those are the numbers associated during the build for them. So I kind of find it interesting that, there's kind of little differences there that might not, could cause some questioning to happen.
But why? But why would they change the nameplates? What would they get out of that?
So I was thinking JP Morgan's a smart guy, right?
Yeah, and he's
Probably smart.
He's got a giant nose. I'm sorry. I know that's rude, but I'm looking at a picture of him and he's got the world's biggest nose. Anyway, continue.
I think he was trying to kill two birds with one stone. So we have the Olympic. It's damaged. We have the Titanic. It's obviously worth a lot more money. The Olympic are getting rammed by a warship in 1911. I guess they didn't pay out, whatever happened with that. So, in order to get adequate insurance money, these ships were switched before the Titanic set sail. If the Titanic sinks, you get a lot more money than you do for the Olympic. The Olympic's already damaged. It's been several things have happened to it. I don't know if it could have survived another ramming and sinking of a U-boat if it's already been damaged beforehand. I mean, I guess they could sit there and try to, but it's tedious work on this hull. So, you send out the Olympic. There is notes of passengers saying that they've noticed differences in the Titanic from when they saw it before to after, and wondering why changes were made. So you sent the Olympic out on towards wherever. It gets sunk by an iceberg, pack ice, even another explosive. People have heard explosives that apparently were survivors. They had explosives. Maybe explosives were planted in the ship. Ship takes on water. Rich people that JP Morgan doesn't like don't get lifeboats. They're not allowed them. The thing sinks. It's the Titanic. You're not going to find it back then with that kind of technology in 1912, 1911, 1912. They don't have technology to get to the bottom of the ocean. You collect a check, and you ride off into the sunset and say the Titanic is the Olympic. There is a video, little clip I'm going to post on X too. It's from the movie. It's footage from the Titanic, but it's footage from when they dove down to the Titanic to get actual footage of the ship for the movie. And I'm going to get called an asshole or whatever for the saying what I'm going to say, but I don't see it any other way. As the submersible comes down, floats next to the ship at the bow section. It looks the submersible is right, which would be the ship's right also because the ship's facing towards you. We see the curve of the beginning of B deck. It looks like B deck. People are going to tell me it's A deck. The curve doesn't look the same in any of the pictures. And then we see window, 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 window. If you look at the picture I posted on X, the Titanic has window, window, space, window, space, window, space, window, window. And the reason for this is because, remember, they changed the B deck to be private and not a public promenade. So that ship down there doesn't look like, from that angle, the Titanic to me. And then above it, you don't really see much. And I believe that's because the A deck on the Olympic was open and crushed down from the weight of the pressure of the water and just the incident itself. The Titanic, having an enclosed A deck, seems like it probably would have sustained less damage on that structure because it's more structurally sound. You have all those extra, it's enclosed, not just open with poles sticking up to hold up a roof. That ship seems to be the Olympic down at the bottom of the ocean.
So what you're saying is this is the greatest case of insurance fraud the world has ever seen.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Allegedly the greatest case of insurance fraud we have ever seen in our entire lives. And I mean, what else could you do back then? How are you going to prove stuff back then?
You're not.
You don't prove anything, right?
No. How are they going to get to the bottom of the ocean back then?
You didn't. They were like,
didn't.
ah, fuck it. By the time they can get to it, I don't give a fuck.
It's fucking too cold for that shit.
Now, what happens if most of the people that were saved and showed up to New York City on the Carpathia were plants, told what to say? Oh yeah, the ship's split in half or whatever. And then these people, this crew that says, oh, because why would the crew, like at this point, the crew adamantly say the ship didn't split in half? Like, what do they gain from that?
Yeah, like, who gives a shit? It's at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, so we have crew members stating they swear they don't know what any of these people are talking about. The ship, there's no way it's split in half. But then you have the crew, the survivors, the passengers swearing that it did split in half. We saw it, or AKA the plants. They could have been planted as survivors. And then the people that they really wanted dead are just gone because the whole ship was just destroyed. So all these differences in, I mean, you're sitting there staring at a fucking almost 900 foot long ship, and you have all these differences in accounts. Were they even there? Like,
It doesn't seem like it. Not at all.
It doesn't even seem like it. And we have two very unique people here. And I'm talking about Arthur Priest and Violet Jessup. Now, these two people, somehow, especially Arthur. Now, Arthur Priest is considered to be, his nickname, the Unsinkable Stoker. Because this guy was on 4 ships that sank and lived. He was on the Titanic when it sank. He was on the Britannic when it sank. He was on 2 other ships, a military ship and some other just, commercial ship. He's also on the Olympic when it got rammed by the Hawk. So this guy's a little weird. But then you also have Jessup, Violet Jessup. And the other thing, too, that's interesting to me, so we have Violet Jessup here, too. She was on the Britannic, the Titanic, and the Olympic. And the Olympic hit the Hawk, and also when the Titanic and Britannic sank. She got on Lifeboat 16, and so did her pal, Arthur Priest, on the Titanic. They both seem to have left on Lifeboat 16. And there's another oddity about her, which I just don't know. So when she got on Lifeboat 16, someone just threw a baby at her, apparently. So, I don't know, this kid just got thrown in her lap. And then when she got to... I'm not even kidding. Someone just whipped the baby at her.
Just the image of you escaped this catastrophe. You're safe in the lifeboat, and then someone just hurls a baby at you.
So Jessup gets a baby whipped at her. She, arrives in New York, and then she says, without notice again, some woman comes up crying and snatches the baby and runs away. And she's like, I guess it was her mother. Must be her mother. And then apparently later in her life, someone calls her and asks her on the phone after she retired in the 50s if she had a baby, if someone gave her a baby the night the Titanic sank. And she said yes, and then the voice said that I was that baby, and hung up. Now, she says she never told anyone that story. But the thing is, the person who was that baby died 20 years before. So I don't the kid died at 20s. So I don't know what the fuck that's about. That's some kind of paranormal shit. I don't know. She said she swears she didn't tell anyone. But so this woman's just weird as shit to me. So are these two in cahoots as plants for destruction on these ships to help out, their old pal J.P. Morgan?
Yes. I was going to say, well, at least Priest is.
At least Priest. So you think Violet Jessup is just a standard, is just a bystander, just happened to be on board the Titanic as just some stewardess. She was on the Britannic, or she was a stewardess on the Titanic, stewardess on the Olympic, and then somehow she's a nurse on the Britannic. Just
I
happened to be.
Yeah, I like to think she's just the unluckiest lucky person in the world. But but Priest, he was down in the coal room, right?
Yeah, he was a stoker, a fireman, stoker. Yeah, so he kept the coal burning in those boilers to keep the steam going, to keep those engines running.
So he was on 4 ships that sank. So he was either
And then 3 that had collisions.
yeah. So he was either really bad at his job or maybe allegedly in my dumb mind he was maybe setting up a bomb of some type.
Was he really a fireman? Was he a bomber? Could he be the JP Morgan's, guy that goes in there and plants?
He's his hitman.
He's the hitman. So you're saying he did 4 of them. He succeeded in 2 or 3. He failed, and that's why they're just collisions.
I think it's plausible.
Plausible.
It's something I can believe. Yes.
It's plausible, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So him doing all this crap. It was how many ships? I mean, there's also some Archie Jewell that also survived the Titanic that was on these other ships with the Britannic. He has the face of not to speak ill of the dead, he has the face of someone who could plant mines and bombs. It's just me.
I mean, to be fair, I think every man from that time period looks like that. But,
Oh, I guess so, yeah. So, and what I find funny is that he survives all this. He's the unsinkable stoker. He's just a fucking invincible fucking tough guy. And then he dies at 49 of pneumonia.
oh.
You know what I mean? Like, you do all this and then you get done in at a young age. And he's at the Hollybrook Cemetery in Southampton. Unreal. Can't even. You'd think this guy would live to be a ripe old age, and he didn't make it.
The curse of the Titanic.
Maybe. Going back to the Britannic, and so the Olympic is able to. The Titanic sinks by just getting freaking a gash on its side, 30-foot hole. Originally said it was like 300 feet, but now, scientists said it's probably about a 30-foot long hole in the side. The Olympic had a 40-foot hole below the waterline, but it was a huge opening, not a long slit, I guess. That thing survives. It survives. It takes out a fucking U-boat by just slamming into it. It survives that without a problem. But the Titanic gets done in by this pack ice. And the Britannic, even worse, sinks in 55 minutes from a mine, even though it has a double hull and all that. So there is no, like I was mentioning before, the pictures of at the scrap for the Olympic. There's nothing with its upper. It's just its hull. And that was in 37. Is it possible, if you're saying, oh, though the Titanic is down there, we have proof it's a Titanic down there. Could they have still swapped the ships? The Olympic went out to sea and maybe didn't even sink. It was
swapped on the voyage.
Not even swapped on the voyage. Were these people then disposed of that he didn't like? It's fucking no one's out there. No one's even answering the radio. Apparently, the closest ship turned the radio off. The ship then, you don't have GPS back there, leaves course because I thought by the time this rescue ship came, the ship was at the bottom of the ocean anyway. No proof of it sinking until we see it down there in 85. Ship leaves. They say it sank. Say it's the Titanic. Get the money for it. Kill off the people that they didn't like. You have all these plant survivors on the Carpathia that go to New York City. Then later on, when the ship is scrapped in England, could be the Titanic at this point. You then bring it to a point in the ocean where you think that it just went down, and you sink it at this point later on. And then we find it in 1985.
1985, when nobody who would have done it would get in trouble.
And no one's alive right now from this. I mean, 85, there's some people alive, but I mean, the main people were not alive anymore. J.P. Morgan died like the year after the Titanic went down. I believe he died in 1913. So nothing's on him no more.
Couldn't even enjoy his insurance money.
He couldn't even enjoy the insurance money for the other ship. And that's how, and these plants tell the story, and like, oh, it broke in half, and like, oh yeah, they're saying it broke in half. Let's break it in half and send it down when they scrap the other one. No, yeah, maybe.
I could see it. It's one of those stories where it's everything about it is far fetched. Everything, even including the iceberg. But one of these stories happened. At least one of them.
Something had to. Yeah. People died. I know we're going to be called idiots. It just struck an iceberg, but it's just all odd. Like, from no one knowing the size of the iceberg, no one knowing how the ship broke in half, or did break in half, it didn't break in half, different accounts of noises they heard. A lot of different things could have happened.
Yeah, because what was it like? It had watertight compartments at the bottom of the ship, and if it were to fill up in 3 of them, they would have been fine. But apparently, 7 of them were breached, so they were fucked within a matter of what, hour and a half, 2 hours.
I think it took like 2 hours and 40 minutes for it to sink. So I think the bulkhead. That's why the Britannic had higher bulkheads. Because apparently, without having the ship to inspect, without having, much of anything, because it's at the bottom of the Atlantic, they knew, because the Britannic was still in construction during this time. They knew what went wrong. Somehow, the White Star Line knew everything that went wrong with this ship. So that's why they double hulled the Britannic. That's why they increased the height of the bulkheads in the front of the ship. They increased lifeboat capacity. They didn't just have, I think there was 20 on the Titanic. They had motorized davits now instead of just manual davits, and they were able to stack the lifeboats on the deck. So all these changes were done to the Britannic because they, quote unquote, knew what happened to the Titanic, along with the rudder, having a larger rudder to help it maneuver. And that rudder thing isn't the first time the White Star Line has had an issue with a rudder. And the Titanic isn't the first maiden voyage for White Star Line that sank. White Star Line seems to have a track record of excellent safety. So back in 1854, the RMS Taylor was a sailboat, iron-hulled sailboat that went on its maiden voyage, and they screwed shit up. They thought they were traveling north, but they were traveling west, and
What the fuck?
yeah, and they hit rocks and sunk. Now, that they said is because the captain was too young, and he fell and hit his head or something, so he wasn't thinking clearly. The compass was set up wrong, and then they didn't have a separate mast compass, because apparently, because the iron hull interfered with the main compass they were looking at, there's supposed to be a secondary mast compass away from the iron hull to try to get a more accurate detail of which way you're going. The sail lines, the rope, wasn't wasn't stretched enough when it was being made. So then when it was put on the ship, the rope had a lot of slack in it. It was impossible to steer the sails and control the ship. And apparently it just slammed into the rocks somewhere by Ireland and sank. So if you can see, the White Star Line did not seem to have a very good track record of safety. The Lusitania was docked in New York. This ship actually set the record for the transatlantic time. It was a White Star Line ship. It was docked in New York, but I guess someone's like, one rope will do. It came loose and crushed and destroyed a tugboat, and White Star Line was liable for the damages. So you could see, like, it just seems like White Star Line doesn't have a very good safety record.
No, they're like the Greyhound of the ocean. Like, they suck.
You're trying to say that the Greyhound bus line is
Anytime I'm on a Greyhound, there's a problem. Anytime.
Yeah, for you UK listeners, and any other country, Greyhound is a bus line, private, not like New Jersey Transit would be around here. New Jersey Transit buses. Yeah, Greyhound has older buses.
I mean, if you would consider 30-year-old buses old, but
allegedly,
yeah,
Greyhound.
Allegedly, sorry.
So yeah, there's a lot going on here. I think Arthur Priest, he's a weird guy. Just the differences in the Titanic, the propeller being found at the scene with apparently a 400 etched in it, not a 401, which would have been the Olympics, not the Titanic's. Again, I'm going to say it again, the capture of, it looks like to me, B deck in that footage of the submersible running alongside the Titanic or the Olympic, whatever. It looks like the Olympics B deck, not the Titanic's B deck. And then we have something, you have the Titan going down there, right? To go check it out.
Oh, the Titan. Oh, God. I remember when this was happening.
Yes.
The Titan. And for days, we were watching it on the news, just like, I hope they find them in time. And it was a rough couple of days.
But I guess they didn't last too long.
More so for them, I would say, but
Yeah, I don't think it was days for them. I think so the Titan, I guess that guy who owns the submersible, Ocean Gate submersible, the Titan, he went on it himself, the owner. So, to me, the whole thing's odd to me too, because if I'm going on this thing, why would you not want it inspected? You would feel like they would definitely want to have that inspected. But apparently they're trying to say that, he didn't care about inspections, and he just went down anyway in this thing, and it imploded because of the pressure of the water.
I don't know if I even believe the inspection thing, because he seemed like a smart guy. I mean, his name was Stockton Rush. That's who it was.
So the other thing that is, I guess they went down to look at the Titanic a couple times or something. Maybe they saw something. Maybe they finally saw something and someone didn't like it. But because what's odd to me, another thing, is that the Coast Guard just released it, the U.S. Coast Guard, the moment the Titan imploded, the sound. So they have the sound file the moment this thing imploded, and they know exactly. But you're telling me that no one in this freaking world can find a Boeing 777 Malaysia Airline MH370? We cannot find this thing, but they know exactly when this little submersible imploded in the ocean, and they have sound of it. Like, and that's something that just blows my mind. Isn't that odd?
Seems like they were keeping tabs on one thing and not the other.
Well, they're keeping, I think they're keeping tabs on both, but one's hidden from us, and the other one is they imploded and said, he just doesn't like to do his inspections on his sub.
Fucking PlayStation controller. Dude, they talked about that PlayStation controller for a day and a half.
Yes, they did, yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So, like I said, we're gonna leave this up to you guys to look. I left the picture. I'll put the video file on X too, so you guys can check it out. Guys can look up Arthur Priest. You can look up Violet Jessup. Those two being on the ship. Josh seems to think that Violet was just an innocent bystander. She just happened to be on all of them, not working in cahoots with Priest, even though they got on the same life raft on the Titanic.
Just a funny coincidence.
Just a funny coincidence, I guess.
Yeah.
Josh, that's what Josh thinks.
Yeah.
Not that she went from stewardess to nurse.
Look, they moved up very quick back then. All right, she got promoted.
I guess the medical field was a little easier back then. Right? Not as much training.
Back then, no, none at all.
You just used the bone saw.
Pretty much. Head hurts. We're taking that leg.
So why is there so many different accounts of the sinking between passengers and crew? Because that's like the most like that makes me want to find out what happened. When all these people can say, "Oh, there's something different."
It does sound like what you were talking about with the plants, because maybe they needed to spice up the account for the insurance claim.
Spice it up.
Spice it up a little.
Now, obviously, everyone knows about the ship, the Titanic. Not as much, like I said, not as much about the Britannic and the Olympic. The Britannic is probably the Britannic. You can actually dive to that. It's right off the coast of Greece. You can do diving. That's how shallow that water is there. So we have something we can go to, Josh. You want to go to? You want to go dive into the Britannic?
How deep is it?
You want an exact depth? I'll get you an exact depth. Let's see. 400 feet.
That's not bad.
It's not bad at all. Yeah, you can dive to it. So this one has to be the Britannic, because if people are diving to it, I mean, that's harder to cover up.
Yeah, we go dive. We go check it out.
I always wanted to go diving.
Me too. The closest I've gotten was snorkeling, and it was the most annoying experience in the world. Look, mind you, we're in Hawaii. We're off. We're next to, I think it was Lanai, and there's a reef there, beautiful. And I like to swim without the fins because it flips me over. I'll just say that the fins go up. I get all I hate it. Well, you have to wear them for whatever reason. So we're doing that, and my wife and I are extremely uncomfortable. So we're just like, let's get back on the fucking boat. Fuck this. And everyone else is taking pictures, having a blast. We're like, if we didn't have these fins, it'd be better. But fuck this. But yeah, aside from that, I'd go diving.
Would you want to go to the Titanic Museum?
I'll go to the museum, sure.
Now, we can go to the museum. Now, as insensitive as we are to this whole thing, I'm insensitive. I still find it funny that the museum has a literal slide of the ship, so you can just reenact those people sliding down the deck to their death. Isn't that terrible?
I'd love to meet the person who came up with that idea. Like, oh, we give everybody a taste of what happened. Like, no, it's fucking awful.
Who was the first person at this museum to say, you know what? Let's make a slide. And they're like, what? And they're like, yeah, just put like the bow of the ship in the air. And, or no, it was the stern, I guess. And just send the freaking slide right down. It'd be awesome. Might as well just do the propeller where you fall off the back and smack into the propeller too.
Yeah. Whoever came up with this contraption really has their finger on their pulse of what people like. I really can't wait to see the 9/11 museum, the 9/11 experience. Jesus Christ!
Unreal. I've been to the 9/11 memorial, I guess you could say, where you get to go down there and they have like the fire truck and some steel and the fire gear and everything in the basement.
I've not been yet. I would like to. As an American, we should all go pay our respects, even though it was a long time ago. Should still go, but I have not been.
It's a nice place.
Yeah.
So we have obviously three movies
Uh,
made because of this ship. Which one's the best?
well, let's see. One of the three was one of the highest grossing films of all time, and the other two I watched today. So,
We have people that don't like the actual Titanic movie, though.
that blows my mind. Look, love story aside, it's a phenomenal movie. I mean, it's just so great how effects wise they were able to do that. It looks incredible.
It's a good movie. Now, is it factual? No,
Well,
but
no,
it was
no,
a good
but
movie.
it's Billy Zane's in it. I could watch just for that. But
Yeah, it's a decent movie. I mean, yeah, we have people that say it was horrible. I've had people on X say it's a horrible movie, but because we got people now that understand that we always trying to bring in movies into our what we're talking about, so they automatically bring up the movie as soon as we post a conspiracy now, and it's just off the bat. It was like, yeah, the movie's horrible. The film is just bad.
which look, I like watching movies. It's one of my favorite things, and I like talking about them. And if I could find a movie that matches our topic, I'm going to watch it. But if you guys don't want to hear about it, let us know. But there's always a movie to go with what we're talking about. In this
Yes,
case, there's two, and
three.
well, three. And the two I watched today. Oh my god! Because you mentioned these movies to me. I didn't know they
Yes,
existed.
I knew about Titanic too, and then when I was like, oh, yeah, let me check out Titanic 2 again, like not really to watch it, but just to look in, like look it up again to refresh my memory. It said sequel Titanic 666, and when I saw that, I was like, what? And this movie was made in 2022. Now, do yourselves a favor. Tubi has it free. Do not go anywhere else and try to pay for it.
No, don't. Have you watched these movies all the way through?
I have not watched Titanic 666. I watched Titanic 2 like 10 years ago.
Dude, Titanic 2. Oh my god. First off, the balls to use that as your title. And this movie, quality wise, I wouldn't even say it's CGI. I'd say it's MS Paint level. Like, because the premise of it, for y'all who are might be curious, a rich guy builds an exact replica of the Titanic, and with some minor upgrades, haha, and he's gonna sail the same route, and they're gonna basically pay homage to the original ship. So they get a bunch of people, like a couple hundred or 1,000 people on the ship, and they're on sale. And the guy comes in, he lands in a helicopter, blonde dude, and he has four girls on his arm. I don't know why they needed to do it, doesn't matter. His ex girlfriend, because they need a love interest, is one of the nurses of the ship. There's two nurses for over 1,000 people, which doesn't matter. Um, and she's immediately jealous, and he just looks at her and walks away. And then yada yada yada. Not even like a half an hour into the voyage, the ship is in danger. And because they cut to, mind you, first off, the movie starts, the opening scene is in true Titanic fashion, in which you see a man surfing in the Antarctic, just like the first one. Now, and then it keeps cutting back to the nurse's father, who is a high-ranking member of the Coast Guard, and he gets a call to go see the glaciers because one broke off, and another one's set to break off. So the girl brings him and shows him like this could go at any time, and then her assistant drops a water bottle, and the whole glacier breaks off because I guess that's the straw that broke the camel's back, I guess. And in this, it's not just icebergs; it's giant tsunamis caused by icebergs carrying icebergs that are going to hit the ship. I swear to Christ, that's what it is. So, cut back to the Titanic 2. They're having their little party with the worst party music I've ever heard. And then the guy goes to the rich guy's like, oh, this is a tsunami alert. And then they they act like it's nothing until the tsunami hits. And then a woman looks out the window and says, oh, not again. Which, ominous, but they go nowhere with that. They don't say why she says it. They just cut away and they leave it at that. And then they start shuffling people into the lifeboats, they kind of look like U-boats, but orange. And they're doing that. And then the Coast Guard calls. He's like, don't get the lifeboats because there's another tsunami coming. Nobody listens. And then the girl has to go downstairs to save her friend who is still down in the med bay. So her and the rich guy go down there because they're trying to rekindle something at the worst possible moment. And they find the girl. And here's the thing that annoys me. I'm going to stop talking about this movie after this because there's really nothing else. But they find her friend, the other nurse, and she's like on the floor because something fell on her. So they help her. And there's like, I don't know, she's got like a gaping wound on her shoulder. And they're in presumably like a hospital kind of area. But instead, the girl's like, give me your credit card. And he's like, oh, okay. Hands her a credit card. She puts it on the wound and then just puts two half-assed pieces of tape over it. And the other girl's fine. She's like, well, you cured my ailment. I saw that and it pissed me off. I'm sorry.
So in this movie, did it capsize?
It
didn't.
does. It does
capsize. Because I'm like confusing them with Poseidon. I think I'm confusing Titanic 2 and Poseidon at different points. Remember the movie Poseidon?
Yeah, you're confusing Titanic 2 with a good movie.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it capsizes and they try to get out the bottom of the ship.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
So in Titanic 2, the three of them now, the guy and the two girls, they're going through the hallway and they got to open a door that he's trying to pry open with an axe, but then it's not staying open, so he has to hold it while they go through, and that doesn't work, and the one girl that they just saved gets crushed, and she's dead, and then the ship capsizes.
Doesn't he freeze to death?
He drowns.
He drowns and then comes back somehow?
No. He's just dead, and then they roll credits. Sorry, spoiler alert, I should say, if you're going to go watch this hit motion picture.
Or is that Poseidon?
That's Poseidon.
How is that a good movie then? He's just, yeah, I'm back to life.
Because he lives. But, no, this one, there's only like, mind you, her dad keeps calling from the Coast Guard. He's like, oh, a third tsunami's coming. And like, oh, no. And then dad shows up. There's only one oxygen tank to get out of there. And the guy and the girl, the guy's like, you're going to take this. And I'm going to drown, and you're going to carry my body up, and then you're going to revive me, because that's how that works. And then they get up, and she goes to revive him, and he doesn't wake up, and then the credits roll. And then that's Titanic 2. It's a great movie. I highly recommend it. If you like MS Paint art, this is right up your alley. It's the worst effects I've ever seen. And then we jump to Titanic 666, which is somehow a sequel to Titanic 2. And the only thing that's connecting them is the fact that the ship in this one is called the Titanic 3. Why they decided to make another Titanic after two catastrophes is beyond me.
Is it the same person?
No. This story is a lot more convoluted.
This is the better movie.
Oddly, it's the better movie. Quality-wise, it's phenomenal. But story-wise, it starts with two influencers showing up, and they're like filming themselves like, oh, we're going to go on the Titanic 3. Ha ha ha. And there's like people cosplaying as Titanic people from the past, which is oddly insensitive, but they did it anyway. And then, they're same premise. They're gonna do the same voyage, and when they get to the spot where the ship sank, they're gonna have a moment of silence. But there's a professor, he always goes by, on board, and he's like, I have my collection on board that, he's like his museum that he's bringing so that people could see relics from the original ship that he went diving and got. And there's a girl, a stowaway, who comes out of a suitcase and just kind of moseys up on top and starts going through, and she grabs a cello and she's like hugging it because it was hers apparently, or something stupid. I don't know, because she's a ghost. And then she's back down in storage, and she's doing like a satanic ritual that the influencers kind of happen upon, and they're like, what is this crazy bitch doing? But then other ghosts start showing up and like killing off people. And then you find out that the whole time the professor was actually a bag of shit, and he was not just showing off the relics, he was selling them to the highest bidder. Titanic things ensue, ghosts take over the ship and aim it directly at an iceberg, and then it hits the iceberg and it starts to sink, and it's just ghosts, man. It's just ghosts on a Titanic.
These are survivors.
I just watched this. I should know. I don't remember. That's how bad it was. I don't
You said
remember.
it was better than the Titanic too.
It was better. Quality-wise, story-wise, it was better.
So Titanic 2, they went on a more realistic approach where it was a tsunami. And in Titanic 666, they said, fuck it, ghosts.
Yeah. I don't know why this would be a sequel to Titanic 2. It doesn't matter.
You think they'll make another one?
God, I hope so.
But where do you go from ghosts? There's nowhere to go.
Sea monsters? I don't fucking know. But like, yeah, the ghosts kind of look cool. I guess their eyes were sunken in, and it was like really creepy. And yeah, I don't know. I liked it. I'll never watch it again, but I mean, both of these are on Tubi. Now, Tubi is not known for good movies. I'll say that.
Well,
Except the one I was watching the other night, which, if you like bad, well, it's not even, I'll call it a good movie. Death Toilet.
so I watched the opening scene,
Did you?
and I must say, it just... He goes and sits down on the toilet. Somehow a knife comes in and cuts his balls off, but it's just eyeballs in the toilet, and barbecue sauce being poured over the toilet. And he screams on the floor for like an ungodly long amount of time. Just so long. And then it turned into, he just goes limp and dies. Like the ragdoll effect, like just Fallout style. He's screaming, and then just goes limp. And then the toilet just starts like, shaking a knife around, and the knife comes like out the top of the toilet and just disappears. And then I stop watching it.
You shouldn't have, because I think there's 5 of them. But I watched Death Toilet #2 the other night, and it was
I had
good.
more fun things to do. Like I had to clean the litter box. Just better than watching Death Toilet. Maybe one day I'll get around to it.
I mean, pardon the pun, but Death Toilet was the shit, so...
So you would rather watch Death Toilet than Titanic 666?
No, I like 666. I'd rather watch it than Titanic 2.
You really like 666?
I did. You know what, Joe? I think you should watch it just because it's just the right amount of stupid.
All right, maybe I'll give it maybe when I'm free, I'll give it a watch.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think the whole issue here, like this whole thing, the Titanics and everything, I think the main problem was the lack of Ovaltine consumption. If you know what I mean. Like, I feel like if you're listening, our listeners, please be sure to drink your Ovaltine and avoid these kind of situations.
It's true. It's very good for you. It's nutritious. It tastes phenomenal. You could drink
Vitamins,
it
minerals.
hot or cold.
Yes, packed full of vitamins and minerals. So, where are we going next week? Or, well, next episode, I should say, because we're trying to get out to a week now, not just once a week. And this will be the first time we kept up our end of the bargain.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. For this next episode, we got to think it over a little.
We just keep the conspiracy going about the Call of Duty episode.
Yeah.
Is it a real episode?
Does Steve really exist?
Does Steve, the Call of Duty expert, even exist? Did he get a mic?
That one I know the answer to, and I guarantee it. No.
He told me he did.
But no, we're gonna talk it over. We're gonna figure out where we're gonna go next.
We'll leave it up as a mystery.
It's a mystery, yes. But
right.
As for right now, I'm actually gonna go get myself a glass of Ovaltine.
All right. See you guys next recording.
Bye.